Jason, what advice would you give to a parent that's struggling with their child in a bully situation?
Well, I think, this is a tough one because every situation is unique. But, I always kind of go back to, I coached modified football for a long time in a school district where football really wasn't a strength in our program. So what that meant was I was coaching a lot of losing games. And I'd have kids in the huddle that are middle school aged with tears in their eyes and beaten up and a lopsided score. And my goal as a coach was to always send them back to the line of scrimmage to run another play with belief that there was hope, right? To maybe get a couple yards or a first down or a touchdown. So, and when at that level, you're on the field with them. So, I mean, I think that's really kind of the mindset that I have when I'm dealing with a kid who feels bullied or who's being bullied. Parents sometimes, with good intentions, make some horrible mistakes on their advice. They say ignore them. You can't ignore your bully. There's that power imbalance. There's that socially stronger or physically stronger presence that they have over you. It's just not possible to ignore a bully. They get under your skin. It's a repeated behavior. It's intentional. So I understand why a parent would say that. I think my parents probably told me that when I was a kid, but it's ineffective. Additionally, some parents get caught up on like, what are you doing wrong? Or try to coach the kid through, their interactions and making them feel like they're doing something wrong. And a lot of that has to do maybe some of the social media and the cyberbullying stuff that happens with their devices, and kids can't not go on. So they tell them to turn off their phone. Is that realistic? I don't think so. So you want to make sure you sell that you're on their side. You want to make sure that you realize that you're persuading them or trying to sell to them that there's hope, that there's possibilities that exist for them. And I think that, the quintessential punch them in the nose, I talked about that earlier. I don't think that that's realistic. So what are some strategies? So, depending on the situation, when it's somebody calling someone a name, you're making fun of the color of my shirt because it's pink and I'm supposed to be a strong male, and you're telling me, worst thing you can say to a middle school kid, it's kind of always been this way, and I think it still exists, is one of the worst things you can say is gay. Middle school boys, because I coached and taught phys ed, that's really a tough one for a boy to deal with over and over in a bully situation. So, you're telling me my shirt's gay. There's a lot of different ways for me to practice with you how to handle that. One might be the broken record technique. And it's just you keep repeating the same thing. And when we were kids, it was I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me, sticks onto you. That worked pretty well to get our siblings or our friends kind of riled up, or our neighbors in those situations where we're razzing each other. But that same kind of thing applies, and you would just say back to them whatever your statement is, you would repeat it. So you make fun of my shirt and you say I like my shirt. You make fun of my shirt, I like my shirt. And you just keep, I like my shirt, I like my shirt, I like my shirt. And that's my trained response. That's the broken record that keeps playing. But typically a kid, their emotions escalate and then they lash out back, and that's actually feeding the fire. So, just the broken record technique I think is a good one. Another way to kind of use the broken record is, are you trying to hurt my feelings? Is a great response. Are you trying to hurt my feelings? Are you trying to hurt my feelings? So every time you come at me with something, are you trying to hurt my feelings? And that's something that needs to be practiced, because you probably did hurt my feelings if you said go kill yourself, or if you use something personal against me, like a horrible thing. But just to capture the intensity of it is, if my father passed from a disease, your dad died because he got sick of seeing you, you should die too. That's something that's going to spike my emotions, right? But if I can say, are you trying to hurt my feelings? And then you can even say, could you say that again? I didn't hear you. Could you say that again? I didn't hear you. Could you say that again? I didn't hear you. And you can see how that kind of extinguishes the source of where that's coming from over time. So I think those are some great things to try to employ through role play. But let's be honest, that bully sometimes can be such a monster, they're going to prevail. But I'm going back to the line of scrimmage, whether it's the bus or the hallway or to phys ed or to the locker room, with another play. So it's really important. And then one of the other ones that I like to kind of throw in there, because, we're in a day and age where kids like to kind of be witty and humorous. With that whole gay topic, I had a kid one year, and it was awesome. I'll never forget the expression on his face. He was being called gay. And I said to him, listen, man, you got to come up with a little bit of sarcastic compliance. And he looked at me. I said, yeah, you see, you know what? wait, are you the gay police? Wait, where's your badge? Are you wearing a badge? You're in charge of who's gay and who isn't? Is he gay? You said I'm gay. Is he gay? You're the police, aren't you? And the kid really got this like look on his face of empowerment and had a plan. You know, it was 3rd down and long and we're going to throw him the ball. So he went up to the line of scrimmage ready to run that play. And I think that that's what we have to do, is persuade to them that there's hope. There's possibilities that exist. So they're not going to have to take that verbal beating and be socially and emotionally on fire on the inside.
Yeah, you know, I famously say we're not there for kids that get bullied, kids that are bullies, but we certainly have tons of stuff in our bag of tricks for those kids too. And if I gave a parent a couple pieces of advice, I give Jason's advice all the time to kids all the time. Number one thing, you got to practice with them. I tell kids all the time, call me gay, and I make them call me gay. I say, you know, let me break up with you, or you break up with me. Practice it with them, because just saying the words out loud can make a difference if they hear themselves saying it, not just go say this and let them try it for the first time in a socially charged situation where they may be embarrassed. But I always tell parents, number one thing, never tell your kid to ignore it. I think it's one of the worst pieces of advice we could ever give a kid. And I can make this very relevant for you, Jay. If I say to you, your wife comes home from work, she's having a crummy day, her boss is a jerk, you know, nothing went right in her classroom today, and her boss is giving her a hard time about something. When she walks through the door and she's got tears in her eyes and she starts telling you about what's going on, just look at her and say, just ignore him, honey, and grab me a beer. Like, think about how that would work with someone that has a fully formed brain and not a kid who doesn't even understand how to regulate those kind of things. And you're going to tell them just to ignore it. I mean, that's some crazy advice right there, if you ask me my opinion. Like, you're going to tell something that's operating on its feelings to just ignore what's happening to it and its feelings. So don't ever do that. Here's another piece of advice I give kids. They're like, what do I do? And Jason hit the nail on the head. Every situation is different, but my number one response, something. And they always are like, huh? Something. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not in your situation. But if you see someone not being treated the right way, you might have to roll around on the floor and act like a cat. Huh? And that'll make them laugh, right? And I say it this way. I say, okay, man, you're on fire. Your body's on fire. And essentially, a kid that's hopeless is on fire, socially, psychologically, emotionally. We don't know how to put them out. And that's what we teach kids how to do, how to put kids out that are on fire. I say, if I had a bucket of filthy water, would you want me to throw it on you? You're on fire, your body.
Absolutely.
Well, it might kill you. You might get respiratory cholera. You might get a fungus that grows on your skin called aspergillus that will probably kill you. Do you want me to throw it on you?
Yes.
That's what happened to our buddy Rick Yarish. The water that put him out when he was on fire almost killed him. But you'd still want me to do it. And sometimes people say, well, Tom, that's a temporary fix. Okay. But someone's on fire, you got to put them out. We'll come up with a longer term strategy. But the reality is you do something. I don't know, maybe you just honk the horn when somebody, you know, I hope they watch the other segment here. But my point is this, you got to do something. If you see someone not being treated the right way, do something. That's what you got to do. You got to do something. I don't know what it is until I'm in that situation. So the other thing I would tell, that I tell people all the time is this. This is funny to me. Like and this is more geared towards dads, and it's kind of in the same vein of what we're talking about here. But it's very important that I say this because I need fathers to hear this. Like, you got to get tough. Bullying is part of life, right? And you got to get tough skin. When I was a kid, it used to be like this. You got to deal with it. You got to punch them in the nose, and it fascinates me. What other animal do we train like that? I mean, you're going to kick your dog to make it better? You're going to whack it in the face to train it? I mean, what other animal? I mean, if you got a bird or a rooster or whatever that you're trying to train, a mouse, do you beat it? Do you scare it? Do you threaten it? No, the only animal we do that with is a human. Every other animal, you treat it with kindness and gentleness and love, and then it obeys you. Like, don't ever do that to your kid. Like, I want to have a tough kid. Like, I want him to be mentally strong, or her mentally strong. I want her to be confident. I want her to be able to be vulnerable. what am I going to do? Embarrass it, humiliate it, beat it, and hope that it will because that's what you're supposed to do with animals? No, you're not. You're supposed to be kind to a dog.
And I think those strategies are all very situational. They're all very strategic and tactical. I think, you exhaust those and you revisit those and you go back to the drawing board with those. But also, I think that the two, always that you can do, no matter what the situation, is make giant investments in their significance and their acceptance. After food, shelter, and water, the two greatest human needs, what your wife needed when she came home with that tough situation, she needed to feel important, she needed to feel accepted, because all day she didn't. And when people are in that moment where they're looking for someone to be some of their emotional first aid, it's all doses of significance and acceptance. And I think that's the long-term approach to helping someone become assertive, is when I feel significant in this world, when I feel accepted, I can be assertive and I can stand up for myself. But that's a long-term approach. So there's some short-term strategies and tactics.
And the only last piece I'd add is don't underestimate their power and what they can come up with. Like that kid that, when I was in front of, with the phone and the pumpkin, if you know what I'm talking about. Don't underestimate it. I had a kid once tell me I would bribe the bully. And I said the dumbest thing I've ever said to a kid. I said, that's a terrible idea. Why would you reinforce that behavior? But just like that bucket of water, why isn't bribing a bully temporarily to get him to stop treating someone a certain way? Why isn't that an amazing idea? Now, the next time you bribe him with candy, maybe the third time you wink at that target and they know you did it for them. And maybe the 7th or 8th time that it happens and you bribe that bully with candy, you turn to that target and say, hey, do you want a piece too? And you make a connection. I mean, why is that such an awful strategy? Like, initially we think it's awful, but maybe temporarily it's not. There's a lot of things you've done temporarily to stop the bleeding, right? Financially or physically. So I say, listen to kids, and a lot of times I'll throw out to them and I'll say, well, what would you all do in that situation? And then I got to help them craft what they come up with, and with my experience and with their, ingenuity and their creativeness, especially when they're engaged in play, the creative juices just flow. So, yeah, man. But I think Jason's right. The long-term strategy is significance and acceptance always builds that final plan.